Welcome to another episode of the Market Research Association Hot Seat, MRA. Today, my partner in crime is Paul Kirch from ActusMR. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Jack.
Thanks for taking some time in the hot seat. So, Paul, a little about us two. We are the social media guys now for the MRA New York chapter. So part of our social media initiative was to start this podcast and some other initiatives. But one of the purposes of this was to give everybody a chance to meet the other people involved and let them tell them about their business and share some insight. So,
Sure.
This time around, I want to just give you a chance to shine. And then in future podcasts, we're going to delve into some other issues. So tell me about your business, how you got into it, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, first off, let me say thanks to the New York chapter for allowing us to help them with their social media strategies and the podcast here, the Hot Seat. I think it's a great idea. I'll tell you a little bit about ActusMR. The company started last July, so about a year and a half ago, and the whole concept behind it was to be able to give back to the industry and provide support to companies that are trying to take their sales strategy or their business strategy and get a little bit more focused. I come in with 20 years of market research experience, about 10 years spent in sales and sales leadership, and I wanted to be able to leverage that, and I wanted to be able to help companies in the industry. So I developed some training and some coaching and some consulting practices around the idea of helping companies focus on their business health. I refer to our firm as the business health specialist. We help companies look at their sales, their marketing, and overall business strategy, identify areas that they need to make adjustments and changes to have a healthier company, to create a more sustainable future, and to give them an opportunity to be successful in these trying times. Buying decisions are changing. The way people are focusing on business is changing, and so I'm here to help companies find solutions to give them an opportunity to be successful tomorrow.
It's funny because you've been in the business 20 years, and it's almost like you've gone from the World War I to now as far as technological leaps and changes in business and changes in society and everything. It's got to be night and day from when you started. There's always talk about how this industry and how business is changing. And about uncertainty, what's coming up tomorrow and how do we deal with that? So what's the role that you're playing in that specifically in helping companies?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually a big part of my, I guess, value add for companies. A lot of times they internally can't get beyond the fact that they've got such a workload and projects are so focused on the operational roles and tasks that some of the other stuff, even though it's stuff they know they need to focus on or they want to focus on, they either put Band-Aids in place or they do nothing about it. And so I come in from the outside and really kind of serve as a sounding board and give them an opportunity to, identify areas of struggle, areas of strength, and then put a strategy and a plan in place to give them an opportunity to really implement some change. But, of course, you have to be careful because disrupting their daily business is really the biggest challenge. So one of the things I really try and focus on is baby steps, creating solutions that are, I guess, less disruptive. They give them an opportunity to make change, focus on implementing things, but doing it in a way that doesn't just bombard them with a lot of change at one time, because that can be so detrimental, and it can really impact morale. It can impact resources. So we're very, very careful to avoid that.
So when you talk about this, there's the three kind of main places you focus is sales, marketing, and business strategy.
Right.
So what's the biggest challenge in each of those and then in kind of the relationship?
Yeah. And let me kind of touch on that. When I first started the company, I had this grand idea that it was going to be 100% focused on the sales side of the business. I know it's an area that a lot of companies in our industry struggle. They either don't have the resources in place, they might have salespeople, but they're unsuccessful because they don't know how to manage that process. So I came in thinking that was where I was going to focus my energy. What I understood after getting to talk to clients and starting to work with them is a lot of times they think it's the sales process that they really need to focus on, but they're not really ready to implement change, or they're not really ready to bring in someone. I recently was working with a client who they brought me in to help them develop a business strategy, business development strategy. And what we learned during the process was that they didn't want to spend money to hire salespeople. They didn't want to necessarily change their internal structure, and they were trying to figure out, how do we do this without really making change? And that's hard. So, it really came down to really dissecting their business and identifying where to start. And, that's, first thing we did was we looked at, what have they been doing? How are they driving traffic to their site? What I learned is that they were creating some opportunities through their website, and so maybe that's another area. So we focused on some lead generation opportunities and finding ways to help them optimize getting traffic to their site, because that was converting into some proposal opportunities, because they weren't ready to make the investment. They weren't ready to make the change. So that's the biggest challenge. Is it's not always about just the sales process. It's about identifying, what is it going to ultimately take them to be successful. So I think that's the hardest part with that, is just really understanding a company's, what's their culture, what's their comfort level, what's their budget. Because a lot of times they think they want to have a sales team, they think they want to have a sales process, but they aren't ready to make that investment, not to do it right. So are there other ways that we can approach it to give them a foundation?
I heard David Lee Roth from Van Halen once interviewed, and he was talking about kids who were natural musicians teaching themselves, and he emphasized that it was smart for those kids to take lessons, even though they probably could teach themselves, because what they'd learn in 5 years on their own, they'd learn in 6 months with some lessons. So even though they were resistant, like, oh, I don't need that, I can figure it out, he said that's the smarter track to go, and you're going to pick up things that you may not have picked up on your own. I wonder if there are people out there that need services that you provide, but they're like, I don't need that. I can read a book. I can watch a video. Do you get resistance like that? And how long is your engagement with a company?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a wonderful point, because, I've always been a believer in the idea that I need to surround myself with people who are better than I am. I played competitive billiards back in college, and I took it very serious. And but the only time I really improved was when I was getting my tail end beat by much better players, because it forced me to learn from them. It forced me to watch what they were doing. And, eventually got to the point where I could beat a lot of those people on a regular basis, but that didn't happen because it was just me out there playing pool. And so the same is true in business. If you surround yourself with people who might have a different perspective, might know more than you, give yourself an opportunity to be open-minded. The best professionals have mentors. I mean, the best. Look at Tiger Woods. Tiger's had a rough go over the last year and a half, but here's a guy who, at his peak, was the best golfer in the world, and he always had a coach. So, do I get resistance in an area? I wouldn't say it's resistance. It's more about people not necessarily thinking in those terms. But if anybody wants to better themselves and they want to reach the next level, they should really be looking at trying to find someone who can be a mentor, a guide, a coach. So in terms of some of the things that I have developed, I've created a program. The Always Be Closing, the ABCs of selling. That's such an old mindset. Yeah, that aggressive kind of pushy.
For closers.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why I'm drinking water.
It doesn't mean there isn't a place for that, but I've developed a strategy that really, I think, in our industry is more complementary. It's called the ABEs of selling, always be engaging. It's about creating client engagement, building trust, building rapport, building loyalty, because at the end of the day, we're in a business where repeat business is everything. One-off, you can't live and die by one-off business without really, having some major challenges. So you want to create those long-term relationships. And so I focus on, helping people look at touch campaigns, building, trust, being a resource, those types of elements. They all tie into building this overall strategy of creating engagement.
All right, great. Well, our time's up here in the hot seat, so I thank you for joining me. But
Yeah, no problem.
as I mentioned, we're going to do a running series talking about topics. So this is only the skimming the surface. So thank you for your time, and I will see you online.
Thanks, Jack.
Take it easy.